The day reality changed. The material things we see every day either are exactly what they appear to be or they are not. They just appear to be. Allow me to read an extract from my book Alive on Purpose, which will help me explain what I mean by this. This is a true story. The news had arrived in the early hours of the morning, and within minutes we were being unceremoniously turned out of our beds and told to get dressed and report for work immediately. One of our aircraft was missing, somewhere over that vast and inhospitable jungle that is Borneo, the oil-rich jewel two contesting powers were fighting over. A curious, hushed silence settled over us men who hurriedly dressed and made their way from the two-story colonial-style accommodation block to the buses waiting outside. With its architectural reminders of a golden age long past, the building also carried the scars of a traumatic change having taken place, witnessed by the bullet marks which peppered it still, when a new age dawned with ignominious defeat and the steely fingers of empire began to be prized open. The short journey to the airfield was also in silence, as each of us wondered who was on board the missing aircraft and were they safe. Bearing more resemblance to hulking prehistoric creatures in dawn's early light than the efficient large cargo carriers they were, the remainder of the squadron's giant Beverly aircraft waited as we ground crew changed from our khaki uniforms into work shorts and soft-soled plimsolls. For in the coming stifling heat of the day, with the tropical Singapore air saturated with moisture, and the interior of the cavernous aircraft under the intense heat from the sun became huge Turkish bathhouses, perspiration will stream continuously from our bodies all day long, and clothing will quickly become a liability. We each knew our individual tasks as skilled tradesmen, and we buzzed around in a seemingly disorganized manner to the untrained eye. We were in fact feverishly preparing 3 aircraft ready for flight and loading them with specialist emergency equipment and men to assist in the search and rescue of our comrades and friends. For in that peculiar atmosphere, familiar only to those who have experienced military life, where you not only work together and play together, but literally live together, several to a room, where friend and foe learn to coexist, and where you quickly realize it's a pointless exercise to try to have secrets. It's not a life for the faint-hearted or the loner. It's family, and love you or hate you, when shit hits the fan, you know they'll come running. And we were running. It was about 09:30 hours, hot as Hades and anything metal untouchable. The air was shimmering in the heat, and I had just finished a meal brought to us by the cooks in our mess because until all 3 aircraft were on their way, food had to come to us. But even in that somber atmosphere, there are certain unwritten rules of engagement between the technical ranks and the rest of the mob, who must always be reminded they are in the presence of the highest paid and most technically proficient aircraft technicians. The ruthless teasing and posturing that goes on are enjoyed by all, It's in terribly bad taste and probably illegal in today's climate of imposed politically correct behaviour. With a full belly and pleased with myself that although I was one of the youngest ground crew on the squadron, I was able to engage in this verbal sword fight with the cooks and managed 2 verifiable hits, and thus was seen to be doing my bit to uphold the status quo. Suddenly I heard my name called to help with an unexpected problem with the next aircraft due to leave. As I got into the waiting flatbed truck with my section corporal Dave Hughes behind the wheel, I learned we were to go to a hangar on the far side of the airfield runway to retrieve a vital piece of equipment and fit it to the waiting aeroplane. We set off for our destination, taking the perimeter road. For those unfamiliar with the protocol, airfield runways are forbidden ground to all forms of traffic other than aircraft movements. For me, this short journey was a respite from the energy-sapping work I had been engaged in, and I leaned on the door frame as we went along, hoping to find cool air coming through the open window, and having to do, in fact, with hot and damp. Dave was several years my senior and had quickly become the brother I never had and father I lost 5 years before, when I arrived at the squadron from my previous base in Wales. He took every opportunity to lecture me on the merits of self-improvement and getting on in life. I was also treated on occasions to home-cooked meals which his beautiful wife prepared for us at their married quarter, which was a bungalow in one of the tiny villages surrounding the base. Dave constantly reminded me, or encouraged me rather, to see the Royal Air Force as a fantastic opportunity for me to do something special with my life and leave my dysfunctional past behind. And this trip was no exception. I listened as we drove along the empty perimeter road that followed the deep and wide monsoon ditch which surrounded the whole airfield. For this was not a dinky clearing in a jungle, it was a massive military establishment which will one day become an international airport. Suddenly, a very strange feeling came over me. It felt as though a huge wave of deep relaxation and calmness had washed over me, and I fell into a strange kind of waking sleep. Years into my future, I will recognize this as a trance state. We travelled along with Dave talking animatedly and me in this strange other world bubble where I was seeing everything as if it was being projected like a film onto a large outdoor screen. I felt as though I had stepped into this dream of me sitting in the cab of that truck. I could still hear Dave speaking, and I understand every word he says, but I'm wondering if he has noticed that something very strange has just happened. I'm about to ask him this when I hear the tick, tick, tick of the indicator, and can see on the right we are approaching a small bridge over the monsoon ditch, which leads to a track running through sparse jungle to a galvanized steel hangar glistening in the sun. Against the background of clear blue sky, and at the point where the track ends, it passes between 2 palm trees which form a perfect arch. Framed in this arch are 2 men. They're standing beside the hangar. One has black hair, the other is bald, who I recognise as one of our chief technicians. In that moment, I know I have seen this all before, perhaps in a dream, but I'm not sure. I hear the engine give a throaty roar as Dave changes gear to make the right turn. At this, both men turn and look in our direction. I'm still leaning nonchalantly on the door frame as the truck turns and centrifugal force pushes me hard against the door, which suddenly bursts open. There are no seat belts in the truck, so I go sailing out of the cab, and it feels like time has gone into very slow motion as my left shoulder hits the small parapet of the bridge and my body bounces off and I land on my back, and I can see the rear wheels of the flatbed truck coming right for me. As those wheels hit my chest and head, crushing the life from my body, boom, I suddenly find myself back inside the cab of the truck, leaning nonchalantly on the door frame, and we're driving along the perimeter road, and Dave is chatting away as if nothing has happened. I feel completely disoriented and confused. Did I just fall asleep and have some kind of vivid dream? Just as I was about to say, Dave, I just had the weirdest dream, when I hear the tick, tick, tick of the indicator. I can see on my right we're approaching a small bridge over the monsoon ditch. I see the track and the two palm trees framing a perfect arch. I can see two men framed in the arch, one bald, the other with black hair. The bald man I recognise as one of our chief technicians. I know I witnessed this scene only seconds ago. I hear the engine give a throaty roar as Dave changes gear and makes the right turn. Centrifugal force pushes my body hard against the door. Instinctively, I clamp the door between my left arm and chest as it bursts open. I didn't close it properly. Momentum is pulling me out of the cab. I frantically dig my heels into the floor of the cab and grab the sill with my free hand and manage to stop myself falling out and save my life. The truck stops and the door is fully open with me hanging on, my heels inside, and the arse of me dangling in midair. Dave found the episode a huge joke at my expense, but I never confided to him or anyone else that someone or something had given me a warning which had helped save my life. Why did I not tell anyone about this incident? Because I knew nobody would believe it, and that I would quickly gain a reputation as a weirdo and become the victim of fiendish practical jokes. I remained silent because I knew intuitively there was a reason for what had happened to me, and believing it was a one-off, the memory of it faded away over the following 2 years I spent in Singapore. But, as I was soon to discover, this curious event was just the beginning, for I was about to be introduced to a completely different version of reality, which I will describe to you in future videos. Thank you for listening. Be alive, dear friends, on purpose.